Hi, so for this session we will be factorizing non-monic trinomials, and we'll be using the grouping method. There are different methods we can use, for example the cross method, but with the grouping methods it is more direct and we can get our answer pretty much straight away. Whereas the cross method, which is also used, which can also be used, it does take longer to find the factors. So we're going to be using the grouping method. Now, to factorize non-monic trinomials, this non-monic means to understand what this keyword means, is simply saying where the coefficient of x squared, in this case we can see it's a, does not equal 1. So if you remember factorizing trinomials like this, we have x squared, just say, I don't know, plus 2x plus 3. And if we had to try and factorize this, the coefficient of x squared was the invisible one. So when it comes to, and these ones are called monic trinomials. So when it comes to ones where the coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1, so for example, if we have 2x squared instead of 1, and then plus 5x, say minus 10, then it's these ones here, because the coefficient is not 1, it's called a non-monic trinomial. And to factorize these ones, it is it is a bit harder, but once you get the hang of it, it is quite easy. And like I said, we are going to be using the grouping method, and of course there are other methods you can learn as well. Now, this is the standard form of a quadratic equation, where it's where it's written as ax squared plus bx plus c. So whenever you see a, b, and c, it's referring to a a trinomial where you got a x squared and then the b and the c. And a, b, and c represent different, sometimes they can be the same numbers, but they represent, in this case, a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. Okay, it's always in that form. And it's important that you understand that the a is in front of the x squared, the b is in front of the x, and the c is a number on its own, because we'll be coming back to this standard form of writing a trinomial. So just remember, you've got ax squared plus bx plus c, or your a, b, c, just like your alphabet. Now, before we learn the grouping method, let's just recap on how to factorize by grouping. Now, this question is asking us to factorize this expression using the grouping method. Now, we are going to see something similar later on when we factorize a trinomial, and you'll notice that with this expression here, we have 2x plus 5x. If I added the 2x and the 5x, I would have this: x squared plus 2 plus 5 is 10, so 10x, and then plus 10. And you can see how by adding the 2x and the 5x, we have our 10x here. Now, when we come back to grouping trinomials, non-monic trinomials, you'll see how we will be breaking up the x coefficient, which in this case is 10, into two different numbers. In this case, 2x plus 5x gives us our 10. So just keep this in mind, because we'll be seeing this again, where we break up the 10, in this case, in front of the x, into two different numbers. But we're sort of starting from backwards by practicing this. So if that confused you, it's okay. Hopefully it'll make sense at the end of this session. Okay, so back to this. So to factorize this using the grouping method, well, all we got to do is group two things together. I'll try my x squared and 2x, because I can see I can take out x as a factor. I'll also group my 5x and 10, because I can see I can take out 5 as a factor. Sometimes we have to rearrange our terms, and just so it's possible to take out a factor. And I forgot to mention that it's not possible to take out any factor from all 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, because there is no x at the 10 here, nearly 10, and you can't take out anything. So we'll try the grouping method. Now, looking at my x squared and 2x, now this one, everything is positive, so it's pretty straightforward. Take out the x, so we end up with x bracket, inside the brackets we have x plus 2. There's a plus in between the brackets, so plus, and I can take out my 5 as a factor, and x plus 2. And by doing this, you can see what has happened. By grouping and then factorizing, we can now see we have x plus 2 here and x plus 2. So we can take out x plus 2 as a factor. And if I take it out, if that's gone from there and that's gone from there, we are left with the x plus 5. And all you have to do is put x plus 5 into its own bracket and you're done. And so we have factorized this expression. And now the whole point is we can see what the solution is, what the solutions are, which means the parabola, if we were to draw this, the parabola will have 2 x-intercepts. So let's just do one more question to practice using the grouping method. Now with this one, once again, I'll group these two together and take out the x's and also a factor of 5, and I'll group the 2x and the 8. Now you need to be very careful when doing this because I have a negative here. As soon as you put brackets, you have automatically taken out the negative as a factor. So what you must do is change this negative to plus. You already made the 2x a positive because that negative belonged to the 2x and now it's outside the bracket. So when we expand this, we'd have negative times a 2x, which is negative 2x, negative times a negative, negative times a positive, which will give us a negative. So please be very careful with that. As soon as you put brackets around that 2x and the 8, you have automatically taken out the negative as a factor. And you know that when we do this, you must have the opposite inside the brackets. So let's just rewrite what we have. We've got, so in brackets we have 5x squared plus 20x. I now have a takeaway outside. It's now a positive 2x and now a positive 8. I've put the opposite inside. And once again, if we expand this, we get what we started off with. So now let's take out factors. In here we've got the 5 I can take out as a factor, and also the x. So I'm left with x plus 4, because 5 times 4 is 20, and minus, I can take out 2 as a factor, and I'm left with x plus 4. And I can see that I have achieved what I wanted to, and that is now I can take out the x plus 4 as a factor, and by doing that we'll be left with 5x take away 2. So take out x plus 4 as a factor, and put the 5x minus 2 in the bracket, and we're done. We have factorized this. Okay, so now that we have practiced using the grouping method, let's now try and factorize this trinomial, and we still are going to be using the grouping method. Now, to factorize this, you'll notice that if we had a monic trinomial where the coefficient of x squared was 1, it'll be really easy to factorize. If you remember getting our brackets ready, and we can just put, well, x times x is x squared and so on. But the problem is we have this 3 sitting here. And I know that x times x won't give me 3x squared, it just gives me x squared. And if I put a 3 here, well, then I'm going to have 3x times whatever number I put here, and it just complicates things. So that's why we need to come up with methods on how to factorize these types of trinomials without too much hassle. Now, using the grouping method, you have to basically break up this 10x into 2 other numbers. So we might have, for example, 5x plus 2x, or we might have 9x plus 1x. It just depends on what 3 times 3 is. So to do this, you have to remember, I guess, another riddle. Well, I'll say it the long way first. You have to find 2 numbers that multiply to give a times c, so in this case 3 times 3, and that add to give b. So another way, a shorter way of saying it is, I'll change the color. Yep, a times c, that adds to b. That's something you are going to have to remember when using the grouping method. And let's make sense of this. So A times C, that adds to B. So remember what A and C means. A is the number in front of x squared and C is the number at the end. So A times C, what's A times C? Well, 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, there we go, we got our 9. But now we have to think of factors of 9 that add to B. So is it possible for factors of 9 to give us B? In this case, B is a positive 10. So let's have a look. Factors of 9, we have 9 times 1, we have 3 times 3. Out of these two factor pairs, which one is it possible to add to 10? Well, I know that 3 plus 3 is 6. That can't give me 10. But I know that 9 plus 1 will give me a positive 10. And I'll be using this. So the whole point of figuring out, okay, what 3 times 3 is, which is 9, and then finding factors of 3 that add to 10 is this. I'll just rub this bit out. So we knew, I'll write it up here, we knew that 9 plus 1 can give us 10. Okay, so instead of 10x now, I'm going to break it up and write it like this. So 3x squared still stays the same. We have 3x squared plus, now instead of 10x, we are writing 9x plus the 1x. And of course, we have plus 3. Okay, now the 1, it can be invisible. Okay, I've just put it there to show you the 9 is here and the 1 is there. But I'll just rub it out now because we know it doesn't need to be there. It's invisible. Now, if you're confused at this point, all we have done is we have, instead of writing 10x, we have written 10x as 9x plus x. So 9x plus x is still 10. We have not changed the expression at all. We still have 3x squared plus 10x plus 3. It's just that we've decided to write 10x as 9x plus 3. 9x plus x. And we chose 9 and 1, or 9x plus x, because we went 3 times 3 to give us 9. And the whole point of this is now we are going to, just like we did before, we will group these two together, okay? And hopefully we can take out factors that will eventually leave us with a factor on both sides. So first let's take out the factors of this side. We've got 3x squared plus 9x. Well, I know I can take out the 3 and I can take out an x. Now it's all positive, so I don't have to worry about any negatives. So if I take out a 3x here, I'm left with x plus, and take out a 3x here, 9 divided by 3 is just 3. So I'm left with x plus 3. And do a check. 3x times x is x squared. 3x times 3 is 9x. Perfect. And then here I'm left with plus, well, I can't take out any factors. I'm just left with, well, x plus 3. And I'll leave x plus 3 in brackets because you can see now what we have. The factor on both sides, we have x plus 3 and x plus 3. Now please don't forget the invisible one that is sitting in front of the brackets of the x plus 3. So when we take out x plus 3 as a factor, and I'll squeeze it in down here, so we've taken out x plus 3 as a factor, we are left with 3x plus the 1, and just chuck that in brackets, 3x plus 1. And we have factorized this trinomial here. And the reason why it's a lot harder, it's simply because of this number sitting in front of the x squared, and we can't take it out as a factor. So we had to use a method, and we are learning the grouping method because this method, it's, I guess, much efficient and faster. Okay, so let's try another one. We can see this trinomial here. Straight away, the problem is this 15. And we can't take out 15 as a factor, and so we are stuck. And we have to use the grouping method. So the first step is you go A times C, that adds to B. So A, which is your 15, C is the 6, in this case it's a negative 6. So it's important that you also include the negative. So what is 15 times negative 6? 15 times negative 6, so A times C will equal negative 90, because 15 times negative 6 is negative 90. Now, what are factors of, we'll leave the negative alone for now. What are factors of 90? Let's write down some factors. Well, I know that 90 times 1 gives me 90. I know that 45 times 2 gives me 90. I also know that 10 times 9 gives me 90. Now, I'll just stop here and let's look at these factors. Now, we have to look for whether any of these factors can either add or subtract to give us B. Now, what's B? B is an invisible 1 or negative 1. But for now, is it possible for any of these factor pairs to give us a 1? And then as soon as we establish that, we'll take care of the negative later. Well, I know if I go 90 plus 1, that's 91. If I go 90 take away 1, it's 89. So it's impossible for us to get a 1. 45 and 2, if I add 45 and 2, I get 47. Take away 2, I get 43. That's impossible. 10 and 9. 10 plus 9 is 19. It's not a 1. But if I go 10 take away 9, what does it give me? It gives me my 1. So it's so far possible for me to get the number 1, but I need to get a negative 1. And of course, I had to have a negative 90. So one of these, 10 and 9, have to be negative. It's either going to be negative 10 or a negative 9, because one of those will give me negative 90. And of course, they have to then add to negative 1. So it is possible. So now let's have a look. Well, I know that if I put a negative in front of this 10, okay, negative 10 times 9 is negative 90. Perfect. And let's do a test. If I have negative 10 plus a 9, so positive, that's negative 10 is here and the positive 9, it gives me a negative 1 and I got my B. So this is now how I am going to write my B. Instead of negative 1x, I'm going to write negative 10x plus 9x, which is still negative 1x, but I've just split it up into 2. So then I can use the grouping method. I'll just clear the page. Okay, so with this, so here's the question we started off with, and we had to factorize this here, and we found out that negative 10 plus 9 will give us B here, which is negative 1. So instead of writing negative x now, we are going to write it like this. So we're gonna, the 15x squared stays the same, the minus 6 stays the same, but what we have changed is the negative 1x, and we are going to write it like this: minus 10x plus 9x. So I've just changed the color to emphasize that we have just rub that out a bit. We have changed the negative x and written it like this: negative 10x plus 9. And now we will be using the grouping method to factorize this. So let's try and group these two together. Now remember, if it doesn't work, rearrange and see if you can take out factors. But I think we'll be okay with this because I can see factors I can take out on both sides. There's a plus in the middle, and because I put my brackets around it, remember, if that was a negative, you would have to change this negative to a positive. So always be careful. Now, 15x squared minus 10x, straight away I know I can take out an x, and also I can take out a factor of 5. So I'll take out the 5x. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Take out 1x there, I'm left with 1x inside. Take away 10 divided by 5 is 2. And the x, I've taken it out. So 5x times 3x is 15x squared. 5x times negative 2 is negative 10x. Perfect. Plus in the middle. And 9 and 6, I can take out a 3. So I'll take out that 3. And I'm left with, well, 9 divided by 3 is 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. And sorry, don't forget the x. There was an extra sitting there. We didn't take it out. Okay, so that's 3x minus 2. Now, we can see what we have achieved, and that is 3x minus 2 is a factor on this side. We've got the plus here, and 3x minus 2 is also a factor on the other side. So now all we have to do is take out the 3x minus 2 as a factor. So 3x minus 2 as a factor. And what's left over? Well, the 5x plus 3. Just chuck that in brackets and we're done. And if you have time, just say you were doing a test to check if you factorize it properly. Well, 3x times 5x, yes, that gives me 15x squared. 3x times 3 will give us let's expand it. So we have 15x squared, and 3x times 3 is positive 9x, minus 2 times 5x is minus 10x, and minus 2 times 3 is minus 6. And let's simplify this. So we have 15x squared stays the same. 9x minus 10x is negative x minus 6. And we can see we ended up with what we started off with, 15x squared minus x minus 6. Perfect. And we can do that check just to make sure we have factorized this properly. And once again, the whole point of factorizing is this here shows us the x-intercepts of our parabola. Just keep that in mind.